amigos. So I've been at home all day preparing for the school year. I'm really excited because I'm going to be teaching Spanish 1 and 4 again. So those are the two levels that I've been teaching for the past 5 years. And one of the things that I love about teaching those two levels is that level 1 is usually I have all freshmen. Sometimes there's some seniors sprinkled in, like if they have taken another language at our school, because we have 4 different languages at our school. And so if they have already tested out of the other language, then they can take like they can take a level 1 class of a different language. And so sometimes I have some seniors sprinkled in there, but the really cool thing is that most of them are 14-year-olds, and I have them in Spanish 1, and then I don't see them again until they're 18. And just to see like that sort of career arc, to see that personal growth arc is very exciting. And so my level 4 classes tend to be very partyish. We have parties. We really we have a good time because I know them and they know me, and so it's we usually get off to a really great start. So what I've been doing today is I've been really trying to work on my first unit, which is my identity unit. And in this unit, we have a lot of great activities. So like I have some of these activities included in my identity bundle that's on Teachers Pay Teachers, but we have a few articles about like what identity is and how identity is formed, and then the different types of identity that we have. So like me, for example, I am part of that sort of identity wheel. Like I'm a woman, I'm African American, I'm American, I am bicultural, and so we talk about that, just kind of how we don't have like one identity. And then the other thing too is we talk about how, even outside of our cultural identity, there's a digital identity, there's an institutional identity. And so it's a pretty good, like we have a lot of great discussions around that. And then I do have some articles relating to the transgender identity law in Argentina. So that article always gets a lot of good discussion going. So one of the things that I did differently this year is, as I was going through everything and pretty much like slashing half of my content, I really made sure to include, before each like big activity or task or project, I tried to include priming and front loading time. So like whatever the task that I'm going to be doing with students, I'm sort of like backwards planning a little bit and making sure that I'm including enough time to sort of prime them for that activity and like to front load, whether it's through, comprehensible input or just a whole slew of strategies that I can use to sort of prime and get students ready for an activity. And just not stopping there, I am making sure that afterwards that I embed time to give them feedback. So how my schedule looks. So just to give you a point of comparison, like last year, this unit lasted about, with block scheduling, so it lasted about 12 days. So every other day we see students for like 90 minutes. And that 12 days would be a month, right? So the month of September. Well, this time around, it actually lasts about 15 to I think about 18 days. And that's because I have built in a lot of time for students to like really digest what they're learning, time for asking questions and just like building capacity in the students. And I think that that's probably the most important things, to make sure that they're able to access the curriculum, access the curriculum, and that, the curriculum is at their level, or a little bit above, that it's accessible for them pretty much. And so I'm really excited about that. A lot of the things that I cut from my curriculum, they were not like bad things at all. I just had too much of a good thing. So I had too many good things. And so some of the things that I cut, I ended up just recycling into other units. And so like the article that I talked about before about the identity law in Argentina, that is something that I'm going to be using in my next unit, which focuses on relationships. And we're going to read this book, Secretos, which is about a transgender teen. So that just is going to go perfectly, because we're going to read the book and then we're going to use that article as a reading assessment. And then this article here, Yalitza, this is actually a new addition to my identity unit. So this is going to be This is from Mary Glasgow, Scholastic News in Spanish, just so you know. And this is actually going to be a summative assessment, a reading summative assessment. So I have some other activities that are going to build up to this. So there are a lot of great interviews on YouTube that I'm sort of looking through, creating questions for. I found a really nice biography online. It is kind of long, so I'm probably going to create an abridged version of it. And instead of modifying the language a lot, I am creating some activities where students can they'll have the unfamiliar word. Well, they'll scan the document. So it's going to be about 2 pages. They'll scan, I'll have words in bold, and then I'll have 2 columns. So one column will actually have the word or the phrase, and then in the second column, I'll have options. And the reason why I'm doing that is because, number one, I feel like I don't necessarily have to give students definitions all the time. Number two, I think it's a really good activity for them to kind of look at the choices and then refer back to the context to figure out what the word is. And I think that that's going to help them with their language skills, but it's a great transfer skill as well, right? Inferring from the context. So those are some things that I'm working on. And I'm hoping to get, I really want to do a blog post on this identity unit that I do, because there's so much great stuff. Some of the stuff I do have on Teachers Pay Teachers, I have the identity unit, and I think that has about 25 activities, and I think it's maybe $5 or $6. But I have so many more activities that a lot of it's just things I've curated from online, and I have all the activities that go with it. So I would really like to work on having just a blog post for people, if they could see the paid and unpaid, and just my approach to doing the identity unit, because I think that I've done this unit for about 2 years, and I feel like every year I always learn something that's so precious about my students. And so I'll just say this before I go. 2 years ago when I did it, I had them do these identity collages, and there was a very special way that I had them do it, and I'm still working on that resource. I don't know why. I should just finish it. But this one student, so I had them share in groups, and then one student, I found out that his cousin was killed, because one of the things that I asked them was they had to share something they were very passionate about. So one kid shared that he was very passionate about fighting for gun violence, and he was saying that his cousin had gotten killed. And it's all of us in the group were crying. We're in this little conversation circle, and we're all oh my gosh. And that actually was a student who did not like me freshman year, but we just had such a great rapport last year. And I really credit this unit with that, because there were just so many opportunities to really get to know the students. And then there was another student who he kept talking about his job. And so after the group, I followed up, and I was that's so weird that, you're 17 and you just identify so much with your job. And I found out that it was because his family didn't have any money. And this is the weird thing. This wasn't your, maybe some of you, while I'm telling a story, you're thinking oh, it's probably, some poor urban kid. And to be honest with you, this was not a kid that you would think who would struggle. This is a kid who, lived in a pretty nice part of town, who came to school, really nice clothes, and his family was struggling and they didn't have food. And so as a result, I would just bring him groceries, I would go to Aldi's and he'd make fun of the little bars. He was yeah, thank you for the groceries, but I can survive without those bars. And, he worked and made a living for himself. And I made sure that he talked to the counselor. But I guess my point is that it just really, I felt like a lot of the things that we did really helped me to get to know the students and helped students get to know me, but more importantly, help them to get to know that I really cared. So hopefully I can get my act together and get a blog post up about it.